I want to welcome our stellar panel, my woman 50 grand, Angela Rye, political and cultural commentator and host of On One with Angela Rye, Fernand Amandi, host of the podcast Strange Days, and newly minted MSNBC political analyst, I'm proud to say, and my friend, former RNC chairman and MSNBC contributor, Michael Steele, who I also love to spar with. So happy to have all three of you guys on the show this morning. Angela, I'm so excited to have you on, so I have to kick it off with you. And let me ask you, do you think there's too much, or is there a risk in focusing too much attention on Marjorie Taylor Greene, given the wide breadth of problems that we've seen Republicans introduce to society in recent years especially?
Tiff, you know, that's a profound question, and I would actually say yes. We are spending a lot of time focusing on this woman who, as you said, is emblematic of uniting with crazy. And I think that our larger problem is we have a foundational issue in this country, and that it expands far beyond party. It pervades every corporation. It is in every system of government, from local to state to federal. And the reality of it is there is no unity without first being honest. And we can't be honest because half of the country subscribes to Donald Trump's rhetoric around this 1776 commission, which, as you know, was dropped on Martin Luther King Day. So when you have people who will deny history as it was, the ugly truths, the past of America, the present of America, and what will become the future of America if we are not very, very clear about all that it is, if I hear one more person say, this is not who we are, it is exactly who half of us are. And before we can really move forward, we have to acknowledge the fact and be honest about the fact that that is indeed the truth.
I completely agree. A lot of this stuff is as American as apple pie and as old as the Battle of Jamestown. So to Angela's point, Michael, I want to turn to you, because it's not the party, it's the policies. Since the Republicans have had control, they have introduced policy after policy that is damaging to people who look like you and me. You and I have talked about this before, because I asked you, like, I don't know how to unify with these people. How do I meet a bigot in the middle? So as this party continues to introduce voter suppression bills, as they continue to perpetuate rhetoric, as they continue to be an apologist and give a wink and a nod to these tiki torch marchers, like Charlottesville type people, how are we supposed to move forward as a country with those people still having significant power at state legislatures and even in the federal government?
Well, the last part of your question is your answer. They still hold significant power in wide swaths of the country. There's no doubt about that. Look, this is a battle. There's a battle over ideas. It goes to a lot of what Angela just said about denying history, denying the narrative of this country, creating an America that never existed, quite honestly. It was never about white picket fences. You know, these are the same people who ignore the white poor even in their own midst. So there is this sense of an America that they have idealized. So how do you deal with it? Well, you deal with it the way we're starting to deal with it. You have to confront it head on. I agree we've wasted a lot of energy on Taylor Greene, but it is necessary energy, because if you do not stop it cold in its tracks, it will continue to permeate, and those policies will only expand. What we saw happen in Georgia was not an accident. It was deliberate, right? And it was born out of the deliberate efforts of those who wanted to suppress the votes of Black peoples. Stacey Abrams said, no, that ain't happening. And she systematically took the system down, and she pushed back against it, and she organized against it, and she defeated it. I mean, that's the course. I mean, it is part of our own history. We've watched the marches and we've heard the speeches, but at some point it requires the level of action and engagement that we saw that turned a state blue, that I can tell you very frankly, the Republicans never saw coming. That was not on their reality scope. And so we need to change their reality. And I say that as someone who's tried to do it inside the party, now doing it inside and outside the party, but it has to be done. Not every Republican is like that QAnon nut, trust me, right? But we have to create a pathway for those folks to get on and join us in this effort, because right now they're overwhelmed inside the party. And that sounds crazy, but I think we can see how and why that's happened. And we've seen how 74 million Americans have bought into something that they know now is a bad bill of goods.
Well, let me give a little pushback on that, Michael, because you're saying Republicans didn't see Georgia coming. I beg to differ. I think they very much saw it coming. This is why Brian Kemp kept introducing voter suppression bills all across Georgia, and particularly in the South, in the Bible Belt of the country. You're also saying we have to provide an off-ramp. I'm not saying that doesn't need to happen. I'm saying that's not my ministry. Those are not the people who I want to create an off-ramp.
That's not your ministry. That's not your ministry. That's not your ministry, Tiffany. But you're not the only minister, okay?
Exactly. So you are as a minister for I think you're affiliated with the Lincoln Project, and so for folks like that, and I wouldn't apply this to you, but I think even for the Lincoln Project people. I appreciate the effort that they're making, but I'm also reminded that the great ads they're cutting now, they cut against Obama in 2008 and 2009. So forgive me if I'm a little hesitant to ally with folks who were once my enemy. I don't know if the enemy of my enemy is my friend now that we have Democrats in office. So as a conservative, I think a sensible conservative, what do you say to folks like me who are side-eyeing some of these efforts and some of these 11th hour allies?
Well, you can side-eye them all you want, but if you continue to side-eye them when someone is offering the opportunity to work with you because we now have the common cause of our country and our democracy, you're talking about old political battles. That's not about whether or not the Constitution should still stand. That's about whether or not we have Obamacare. I was on the other side of that debate, and I've said to my Democratic friends and progressives like you and Angela and others, I look forward to getting back into the ring with you on healthcare, on the economy, on the environment. Let's have these public debates, but that's not where we are. We're about the deconstruction of our country, all right? So this isn't about any of the people of color on this screen. This is about all of us. This is not about a particular policy. So the fact that, some of the folks on my side were running ads against Obama in 2008, and they're now aligned with you now, ask yourself, what are they aligned with you over and why? And I will accept that opportunity.
So you and I are going to argue some more on your podcast later this month. So I'm looking forward to it. I'd love to do this now, but I'm a thumbtack it because I want to bring in my friend Fernand in this. So Fernand, let me ask you, because you do research. I mean, you're a social scientist, a pollster. As you see some people on the left try to extend these olive branches and try to go down this bipartisan road, I'm curious what that looks like to voters, particularly as we start to shift our focus to midterms. As people get increasingly frightened about the changing demographics of the country, and the GOP party is in many ways like a wounded animal, desperate, even clinging on to these weirdo conspiracy theorists. What do you say to Democrats who are saying, no, we have to be bipartisan, and what impact might that have on midterms?
Tiffany, there are two ways of answering that question. The first, and let me just say from a personal perspective, I think it's critically important that we unite with the Republican Party, because America has thrived and American democracy thrives with a bipartisan system. We've seen, the greatest economic expansion in history over the last 2.5 centuries with a Republican and Democratic Party working together. The problem with that idea is that the Republican Party of our friend Michael Steele and others is dead. And the idea that we should unite with the Q-Publican Party, which is a white supremacist, authoritarian, anti-science, anti-democracy, post-truth party, is not only a dangerous idea and concept, it's a national security risk to do so. And to your original question, I ask myself constantly, let's look at the numbers and let's flip the premise. 61% of Americans today give Joe Biden approval marks for the job he's doing as president, numbers that Donald Trump could only have dreamed of. He never reached or broke 50% in his 4 years. 7 out of the last 8 popular vote elections for president have been won decisively by the Democratic Party, including the last 4 in a row. So rather than discussing about why we should be uniting with this Q-Publican Party, why aren't others talking about uniting with the Democratic Party, which is the party of democracy and freedom?
Yeah, I have to agree with you, and I want to bring it back to you, Angela, because the truth of the matter is constituents voted for Marjorie Taylor Greene. They put her in office. We have a great reporter here, Blaine Alexander, who talked to some of her constituents. They were not appalled. So even outside a lawmaker perspective, even for the people who say, well, I didn't like Donald Trump's rhetoric, but he was good for my business, I'm sorry, that still sounds a little problematic to me that you're able to overlook xenophobia, racism, misogyny, and side with this guy. That's when you're on the other side of the divide, that's your crew. What do you say to people who are saying, no, but we need to provide an off-ramp for those folks? What's your thought?
My thought is that these folks were never on the ramp, right? I think the reality of it is we have people who are friends of ours, Tiffany, in the halls of Congress who are legitimately afraid, like they don't know if this person is crazy enough to take their lives, to harm them, to harm their staff. We are just a few weeks away from what was a Capitol Hill terrorist attack. And I can't, Michael, I love you to death, but I cannot talk about Obamacare right now when we're talking about whether or not, one of my closest friends we could not find for 4 hours. I don't think that we're in a position yet to talk about debating tax policy and how much we're going to pad the next richest person in America's pockets. We really need to be talking about where we went wrong. And again, I go back to where we started. It's at the foundation. And so we can keep putting this at the feet of Marjorie Taylor Greene. We can keep putting this at the feet of Donald Trump. But where we really have to put this at the feet of is at the founders' feet. We have a national anthem that was written by a slave owner. We have statues erected, not just Confederate statues, but people who were presidents of this country, who owned people who look like folks on this panel. That is what we have to wrestle with. We can't wrestle with any of the other things until we get to the heart of the matter. We keep trying to treat the symptoms. But there's a root cause in this country that is pervasive and problematic. And Tiffany, yes, to your point, the same people that cut Obama ads, Obama the Magic Negro, who were right lockstep with Donald Trump, maybe not saying overtly that they questioned his citizenship and where he was born, but certainly suggestively. One of them happened to beat Jamie Harrison this time, unfairly so. At least we have Jamie Harrison as the DNC chair, but we have a long way to go.
I completely agree. And this conversation has a long way to go, but unfortunately, we have to leave it right there. So thank you so much, my friend Angela. I'm so happy you were on the show today. I will politely ask you not to make a lot of plans for Saturday because I would love to have you back. And our mutual friend, Sunny Hassan, had an amazing conversation about this unity yesterday, which you and I will talk about on Twitter and the Gram live a little later. Fernand, I love you. Thank you for being on the show. And Michael Steele, please do me a favor and tweet out when I'm going to be on your podcast so we can have people tune in to our sparring back and forth there. Thank you guys so much. After this short break, we'll take a look at President Biden's new plan to reunite children Trump ripped away from their families. We'll be right back.